Good afternoon, Ranger.
Good afternoon, Counselor.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Mr. Cogdell, I'm sorry, since you're a little taller, you're going to need to get closer to that microphone so we can
Wait, I'm taller
raise
than
that
Dick?
up. There you
Good.
go.
All right. It's been a minute, has it not?
I confess,
Sir?
I confess, he is taller. And in fact, well,
It's been a minute since you and I have seen each other.
It has.
Let me go into sort of your preparation for this hearing. And Ranger, I know you as Ranger Dave Maxwell, so I'm going to call you that whether you want it or not, because it's just in my brain.
I'm good with that.
That good. What have you done in preparation for testifying here today, Ranger Maxwell?
I've consulted with the attorneys. I've reviewed the material that has been turned over that I would be speaking about.
And is your lawyer here?
Yes,
Tell me his name.
T.J. Turner.
And he's in the room.
He is.
Now, when you say that you have consulted the material, let me make sure I'm on the same page with you.
Okay.
I'm aware, Ranger Maxwell, that there are transcripts of your original meeting with the Board of Managers back in February. You've read that transcript, I assume?
Yes.
There is the July 21st, 2020 interview by you of Mr. Wynn and Mr. Paul, right?
Yes.
I assume you've read that transcript?
I have.
There is the August 5th, 2020 interview by you and Mark Penley of Mr. Wynn and Mr. Paul, correct?
Yes.
There are also videotapes. I think the first one is about an hour, the July one, and the second one is an hour and a half or so.
Hour and 17 minutes, an hour and 54 minutes.
Your memory is not lacking. I'll give you that, at least so far. But have you seen the videos as well, Ranger?
No.
Okay. Well, I may ask you some specific questions about those meetings, so let me give you copies of the transcript, Ranger, just so if I get down in the weeds and you need them, you'll have them, okay?
So, it's good.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Ranger, the Board of Managers,
Okay.
the July and the August.
Okay. Good.
He was not on mic, but he was simply pointing out to the witness what the different folders were.
Let's go back to, I guess, your first involvement, Ranger, with this particular investigation in terms of your testifying, okay?
Okay.
And by what I mean by that is when you were interviewed back in February, I think, by Therese Buse and Dan McAnulty.
Yes,
You remember that interview?
I do.
You've read it.
I have.
And in reviewing that transcript, Ranger, in your review, did you see anything that was in error or a mistake?
I see some things that may be misconstrued
What are those things?
about Drew Wicker and what he may or may not be able to testify.
Gotcha. Now, let me put you on pause there. You weren't here, obviously, during the opening statements, so you don't
No.
know what was said or what wasn't said about Drew Wicker and your statements about Drew Wicker. You weren't here, right?
No, that's correct.
Have you met with Mr. DeGuerin or anybody from the Board of Managers team in anticipation of your testifying?
Yes.
Who did you meet with?
I met with Mr. DeGuerin, Rusty Harden, met with the other attorneys that are helping prosecute this case.
Okay. And was that topic brought up in the meeting? That is what you said in the February meeting about Drew Wicker?
Yes, they did ask me about that.
Okay. Now, you know Mr. DeGuerin personally,
Yes.
and to jump way back in time, which was one of the first times I met you, Mr. DeGuerin famously walked into the Branch Davidian compound during the siege in 1993.
93.
Were you escorting him in and out? Was that you?
No, I did not.
But the Rangers did have a significant role in the investigation of that incident, that tragedy, whatever we want to call it, right?
Yes, I was one of the lead investigators.
Yes, sir. And if my memory serves me, Ranger, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you helped a much younger me get access to my client in that ordeal, did you not?
I did.
Thank you, sir. Now, I mean this sincerely and respectfully, Ranger. You're an icon with the Texas Rangers, right?
I don't see myself that way.
Well, a lot of folks do. You'd agree with me.
I've heard a lot of people say that, yes.
You are in the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame, right?
Well, at some point.
What do you mean at some point? You are now.
I am not an official member of the ones they recognize as being in the Hall of Fame. My picture has been there. There was once an exhibit on me in the Hall of Fame.
Well, let's see. You joined the DPS in 1972.
That's correct.
You became a Ranger in 1986.
Yes.
You left the DPS, and I'm sure 95% of the people in the room know this, but some folks watching on TV may not. All of the Texas Rangers, the genesis of being a Ranger, you hail from the Department of Public Safety. That's the outfit through which you become a Texas Ranger, right?
Yes, because the Rangers are a part of the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Yes, sir. So all told, with the DPS and the Rangers, your career lasted 38 years?
38 years.
Now, you made some statements to Mr. DeGuerin about how ludicrous it was to be investigating judges or assistant United States attorneys in this particular case, right?
Yes, in this particular case.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
But certainly you would agree with me, Ranger, that in your experience, you have been part of investigations, even prosecutions of assistant United States attorneys or judges, right?
I have investigated and prosecuted public officials. I've never investigated a senior federal magistrate or an AUSA.
Well, let's go back to the Waco incident. One of the fallouts, tragically, for one of the assistant United States attorneys in that case, a fellow who I actually respect a lot, so I'm not going to mention his name, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
I do.
He was charged with a federal offense after that ordeal, was he not?
He was.
Now, you mentioned OIG, which is the Office of Inspector General, right?
Yes.
And they are kind of like, I don't know what you'd call them, OPR or what is it in local law enforcement when you have a complaint against a law enforcement officer? Help me with the verbiage.
I don't think we on the state level have an equal to the Officer Inspector General because they cover all of the federal agencies as far as being able to inspect them. We don't have that in Texas. We don't have oversight of other agencies.
Okay, fair enough. But would you agree with me that in your experience as a Texas Ranger, you've seen, wrongful prosecutions of DPS agents?
Yes.
One of those was a fellow by the name of Sergeant Bob Nestoroff. Remember that?
I do remember Bob, yes.
He was I think, head of DPS narcotics enforcement.
He and I were in the narcotics at the same time.
And he was charged by an AUSA in Florida, if I remember, for perjury and obstruction.
He was.
Came here and went to trial in Houston in front of Lee Rosenthal, right?
Yes.
You remember his lawyer, right?
I don't remember who his lawyer was now.
Objection for a moment, Your Honor. Relevance.
Well, my point is this. No one,
Relevance.
Overrule. Let him continue.
well, let's just say his lawyer looked like a 27-year younger version of me, but that's not really the point. The point is even AUSAs can make mistakes, right?
You're talking about one individual.
Yes, sir. One individual that charged a compatriot of yours for something he didn't do.
Yes.
Okay. My point is, it is not beyond the realm of possibility for anyone, including an assistant United States attorney, to make an error in judgment or whatever that ends up being criminal. Agree with me? It's rare, but it happens.
It's rare, but it happens.
Now, let's talk about the resources through your 38-year career, Ranger, that you've been exposed to. You would agree with me as a general rule that you have seen the tools and the resources available to law enforcement grow exponentially in your time.
Absolutely.
There are kinds of investigative tools that weren't around when you started with the DPS or when I started practicing law that are around today. You agree with me?
There's no comparison.
Yes, sir. Things like Crime Star,
Yes.
things like Clear for law enforcement, it's public records database, right?
Yes.
Accurate for law enforcement, again, another public records database, right?
Yes.
TLO by TransUnion, another law enforcement public records database, right?
Yes.
Cellbrite, a cell phone analytics tool, right?
Say that again.
Cellebrite, it's a cell phone analytics
Yes.
tool. Gray Key, another cell phone analytics tool.
Yes.
PenLink, another phone analysis tool.
Yes.
Obviously, TCIC, NCIC searches, right?
Yes.
Criminal history checks, driver's license checks, right?
Yes.
Access to some utility companies' databases, right?
Yes.
Open source data like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, all those sorts of things.
Yes.
And 95% of that just wasn't around when you started your career, right?
Absolutely.
So you would agree with me, I think, Ranger, that if you don't know how to use those tools, you could certainly find somebody that could help you use some of those tools if you wanted to use them. Agree with me?
Agreed.
Now, the DPS and the Rangers have all kinds of teams at their disposal, right?
Yes.
They have a reconnaissance team, agreed?
Yes.
A special response team, agreed?
Yes.
A public corruption unit team, agreed?
Yes.
It is not unusual at all for DPS or the Rangers to participate in internal investigations, right?
That's correct.
DPS from time to time, I am told, triple hearsay, uses hypnosis.
We used to. I think it's been phased out now.
Did you yourself?
No, I didn't
You
want.
never did?
I didn't want to do that.
Your legend has been diminished by just a bit. I thought you used hypnosis. All right.
No, sir.
Now, you yourself, Ranger, you have taught all kinds of courses, right?
Yes.
You personally taught on how to conduct investigations.
Yes.
Agree? You have taught on interrogation techniques.
Yes.
Agree? You have taught on how to testify in court.
How to what?
Really? You just did that? Come on. You have taught on how to testify in court.
Yes.
And no disrespect to anyone, this is not your first rodeo. You have testified a few times, right?
That's correct.
Can you estimate for us, Ranger, how many times you have testified in courts across this state or across this country?
Hundreds.
Okay. Now, simply put, Ranger David Maxwell knows how to conduct an investigation if he wants to, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you have literally conducted probably thousands of investigations?
Yes, thousands of investigations.
I guess, Ranger, anything from traffic tickets to capital murders and everything in between you've investigated, right?
Yes.
Now, let's talk for a minute about the good traits of an investigator. See if we can agree on a few good basics. One, they should have the training and the mental tenacity to be a good investigator, right?
Say that again.
They got to be smart enough to know what they're doing.
Yes.
They should have an open and objective mind.
Yes.
They should go into an investigation without bias or predisposition.
Yes.
They should be willing to follow the evidence.
That's correct.
And they shouldn't make assumptions that aren't based on sufficient evidence, right?
Yes.
Now, it is also important, is it not, to follow up on any leads or information given to them by others?
I lost some of that. Say it again.
And I couldn't help but notice you've got a hearing aid.
I do, and so it's a little hard for me.
Yes, sir. And if I don't speak up enough, please
All right.
let me know.
Thank you.
It's important for a good investigator to follow up on any leads or information that's been given to them, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me, Ranger, that a good investigator understands that, you know, we're kind of all equal under the eyes of the law in terms of everybody's entitled to have an investigation, at least if it's warranted by the facts, investigated, right?
Yes.
An inmate or a president or anything in between. Agree with me? An investigation should be thorough.
Yes.
And accurate records and reports should be generated and maintained.
Yes.
And that's important not only for the investigator that's involved in the case, but really for the future of the case, right?
Yes.
I mean, investigators leave, they get fired, they quit, but the case may still be going on, right?
That's correct.
So once again, you have the experience, the training, the assets, the knowledge, and the relationships and the contacts to do a great investigation if you were inclined to do that, right?
Yes, I do.
All right, let me ask you, and I think Mr. DeGuerin touched on it briefly, but let me do it as well. I think he mentioned a search warrant and a probable cause affidavit, right?
Yes, he did.
Where is I have just a minute, Your Honor. Affidavit itself. Right. Well, while he's looking for what he should have had, Eric, while he's looking for that, let me cover a couple of things with you, Ranger. First off, the quantum of proof that a search warrant must satisfy before a judge or a magistrate signs off on it is probable cause, right?
Yes.
And the lower standard of proof is scintilla, and then we go into probable cause, then we go into clear and convincing, and then we go proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You're aware of all those things,
Yes.
right? Now, thank you. I'm going to show you, Ranger, I don't know that if you have seen this or not, but I'm going to show you, without offering it for obvious reasons, the underlying affidavit in support of the search warrant for Mr. Paul's properties and the search warrant itself, okay?
Okay.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Good for right now. Sure. I'll need some later, though.
Yes, let me know.
All right.
So what you have in one hand is a search warrant, which is pretty thick, right, Ranger?
Yes.
You should have, and if you'll pull forward, Ranger, because we got to have your voice pull forward.
sorry.
That's all right.
All right.
You should have two different things. One is a part of the other, but one is the greater search warrant, which is several inches thick, right? The entire search warrant.
Yes.
And then included in that, which we've excerpted out, is the search warrant affidavit or the affidavit in support of the search warrant, right?
Okay.
Now, You have prepared estimate for us, Ranger, how many search warrant affidavits?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, it's a lot.
A lot, like thousands.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Now, you would agree with me that the content that goes into a search warrant affidavit is meant to do really one thing and one thing only. And that content that is to go into a search warrant affidavit is to convince a magistrate judge that there is probable cause for the issuance of a search warrant to search a given premises or a given location at a given time, right?
Yes.
And what's important is not the personalities of the judge or anything to do with the prosecutor or anything to do with anything other than what information would establish probable cause, right?
That's correct.
Now,
Excuse me, objection. And I object to any further reference to this affidavit as it was not part of his review and he's not seen it before.
I'm happy for the Ranger to take a few minutes to look at it, but these are, Dick, I think they're going to be pretty global questions. But if the Ranger needs time to look at it, I'm happy to stand down for a few minutes.
And we
Ranger-
also object to relevance.
The relevance is what Mr. Hardin has suggested time and time again about how the search warrant affidavit could endanger the lives of judges and prosecutors and all this. I'm going there. I'll show you the relevance.
I'll overrule the objection, but Ranger, do you need some time? Would you like 5 or 10 minutes to look at it? It's a good time to break. Members, be back at 2:45.
Thanks, sir. Good to see you.